Okay, so we're going to work on a Faux Midori traveler notebook. I don't know if anybody knows what it is, but it's a leather notebook with a very easily adjustable insert system using elastic bands around the spine, basically. And the books are, well, they make them long, kind of, I don't know, about maybe, it's A4 paper that they use at any rate, so it's longer and very narrow. I'm going to make them so they fit standard 8.5 by 11 paper folded in half like this, you know. That way they can be, you can adjust and make your own booklets for it, you know, using any standard American paper. I seem to have picked a piece that has a big wrinkle in it. I am going to be using this is just a metal straight edge, which is actually used for wood, but it's what I have, so that's what I'm going to use. And a rotary cutter. With a rotary cutter, I'm going to have to go through this probably a couple of times. In order to make enough of a spine that I can add a few inserts, I'm going to make this at what was supposed to be 13 inches, but I didn't quite cut it long enough, and, you know, I don't want to waste it, so it's going to end up being 12.5-ish in order for me to make it square. It's supposed to be 12 by 9, or 13 by 9. 12.5 will just make it so I can only put, you know, 4 books in it instead of just handfuls. You need to use a straight edge because the wow, my brain just shut off. Because the leather is flexible, you know, it'll move if you just try to cut it. I'm very unfamiliar with this rotary cutter, so bear with me here. I don't know what's going on. If anybody knows, let me know. Aha! I see. Alright, so you have to loosen it up to roll it anyway. Never, ever, ever touch your blade like that unless you're confident that you're not going to cut yourself. Pay attention to what you're doing, basically. Alright, so hold it down really good and just make a straight cut. And then go back and do it again, because you're going to have to do it a couple times to get through the leather all the way. Once you've totally got it apart, you're going to turn it and do the other side. Now this height of it is supposed to be 9 inches. So I'm going to straighten the edge and then cut off what I don't need. Oops, let's not do it that way. Oh, for the love of Pete. I am not coordinated today. I apologize ahead of time. Ooh, very sharp blade. Cutting one run. Look at that. Never happens. Okay, so now I can do this side. And again, it's supposed to be 9 inches. So when I do this last side, I will measure the 9 inches to make it 9 inches tall. And again, it's going to be 12.5 inches long instead of 13, but that's okay. Not gonna hurt nobody. I usually have a Fisker's rotary cutter, but this was the easiest one to find. I think my sister gave this to me. I don't know who it just says rotary cutter. It doesn't have a brand or anything. So there you go. Alright, so that is 8. Let's do it this way. That is 9. Now I'm going to turn this so the longer edges over here now that I know where 9 is. Okay. Might flat against that cut that I just made. Make sure you line it up good. This is leather, you don't want to waste any. Alright, so there you go. That is now 9 inches by, like I said, about 12 and a half. Well, actually it's about 12 and 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just about 3/4, so we're not off by that much. I'm going to save this for little bits and pieces that we might want to add on to here. With leather, you can cut it with the like the Tim Holtz dies and the really thick ones with the tall metal blade on them. Anything like that you can cut them with. Obviously, like the thin lit dies and stuff like that will not cut through leather. That's kind of a given. You can, however, emboss on leather. All you have to do is get it wet first and then run it through the embossing folders. I would do, like, lay the folder out flat and do it that way because you're not going to fit all that stuff through your big shot or big kick or whatever it is that you use. So you definitely want to make sure you take into account the thickness of the leather. This leather is some, what do we got here, millimeter? Of course, I pick a ruler, it doesn't have millimeters, right? It is like a, not even 1/4 of a millimeter. So, 2 lines on the millimeter, at any rate, which would be a 1/16, smidgen over a 1/16 of an inch thick. So, very durable, not too thick and stiff like this original one that I cut, which you can't even get to stay open. It's so stiff. I'm going to make something else out of this, don't you worry about that. That will not get wasted. Alright, so this, what I need to do is to wet it and then convince it to fold and stay folded in the right direction. And that'll also be, then I'll be able to take this curve out of it. The curve is because the way it was rolled, it just was a half a cow basically rolled up, you know, and it holds on to that shape apparently. So I'm going to pause the video, wet this, and I will be back. I need to dye it, and I need to pop holes, show you how to do the elastic, and then from there I will show you how to do different book setups for the inside of it. So like a calendar, just a journal, a like something to draw in maybe, and then some other add-ins like a business card holder and a pocket folder, something to that effect. Alrighty. Okay, so I wet the leather. It's not drenched, but it's definitely wet. It's all wet. I've been trying to flatten it out a little bit over here because the bump that I said I had in it. But I'm not going to worry about that too much because wear and tear over time. I'll straighten that out anyway. So this is just a stencil from Tandy Leather. I'm not sure if you can see what that is or not, but it's a dragonfly. And it's basically you run over it, you know, you burnish it on there, and then you would tool it. I am not going to do leather tooling on a video. That would be obnoxious and loud and all those fun things. I am, however, going to just do the impression of it, of the dragonfly corner on here, and I'm gonna leave it. It's gonna be very faint, and I just think it'll be a nice little cute add-on piece. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not obviously like tooled leather, but it's gonna be pretty either way. So it just leaves the lightest impression of it on there. I think it just looks, you know, adds something to the corner and rather than just being plain. I am going to paint this in mahogany, however the hell you pronounce that. At any rate, color-wise, that's what it's going to be painted with. So it'll hopefully pick it up a little bit better with that. And there we go. So again, just a little bit of a detail, not enough to, you know, take hours worth of work, but it's better than nothing. I'm trying not to accidentally leave impressions of the other stencils on here because, you know, that would look kind of strange. I'm just doing the four corners with this dragonfly. There we go. Alright, so this is what the stencil is supposed to look like when you actually do the tooling on it. This one here in the corner. Yeah, like I said, that involves a lot of banging and painting and just too much work for my taste buds at this point. Especially considering this is supposed to be just a, you know, basic, very basic notebook. I mean, it isn't even I don't even know of one that has the detailing on it. I just wanted to put it on there because why not? So, next you would add the EcoFlow is what I'm using, and then this color, like I said, is the dark mahogany. It's a really dark reddish color, which I just adore in these. And the instructions are right on the bottle. It says, shake well, color may be intermixed, may be thinned with water, allowed to dry completely, buff with a clean, soft cloth, or sheep's wool to remove excess surface pigment. Repeat until desired hue is achieved. Seal with a top finish. Do not use suede. Use on suede. Clean with soap and water. Top finish will be the satin sheen, and that you just let the whole thing dry and you just paint it on there like gloss paint at any rate. It's very thin, but it absorbs in and it'll make this kind of, not waterproof, but, you know, less easily damaged by water and other things. Plus, that'll seal this in so this doesn't schmutz all over everything, because it does if you don't seal it in. Alright, let me close this puppy up because we don't want to hurt ourselves. Okay, it's actually, you tighten it up and then it doesn't move. That was why I was having problems with it. Interesting. Put that there so I can find it later. This is a leather punch. Mine is full of bits and pieces of stuff right now. Let me pop those out real quick if I can. I usually use this smallest hole for most purposes. Apparently that was a little easier than I was anticipating it being. I usually have all kinds of junk stuck in all the holes because I use them for this for more than just leather. I use it for paper and chipboard, and the easiest way to get them out is usually just to push them through. There's holes in the middle. Am I even in screen? There's holes in the middle, so when you push this way, they come out of the holes. If it's really, really full, like this one's full right to the end of little holes from previous adventures, you do have to pop some of them out before it'll go any further. So, do that, and then just push the rest through. That's it. Alright, so you can only go one way with this, so I'm going to keep going until I get to the right hole, which is, I went too far, the wrong direction. There we go. I like the smallest hole, usually, for most things. You can also, if you have a big bite, you know, the hole punch thing for paper, you can use that on this. It'll work just fine. I think in my Magic Wallet video, I think that's what I used. Whatever works. It's my running philosophy on things. Alright. I am going to put something under here so we don't destroy my one and only mat that's left. Oh, no, I got another one if I destroy this one, but who wants to keep destroying and re-getting their mats? It's just obnoxious. So this is just a sponge, like a regular kitchen sponge. I hate when that happens. Okay, jeeps. Alright, usually I would use a wool dauber, but I'm going to do it this way because it leaves kind of a weird textury look, which I like. I don't know if you can see that in there, but hopefully you can. And I don't have any gloves up here, so I'm going to have some lovely colored hands when I'm done. You can do this when the leather is wet or dry. I find that it absorbs in more evenly when the leather's wet. Could just be my imagination, but it just seems that way anyway. As you're adding the color to it, you'll notice creases and cracks and scratches and stuff stand out more. It's really no big deal. It's just is what it is, you know. You just learn to live with it, I guess. But always make sure that after you're done doing this part, that you really do let it dry out. Because if you don't, it's going to, the sealant's not going to stick properly. And you want it to. You really do want it to stick good. Especially if you're really going to use this for travel, because, you know, it's going to get wear and tear. It's going to get wet. It's going to have, you know, stuff spilled on it, whatever. You want to make sure that it's going to be able to withstand all of that. Turn around, do the other side. I'm just gently rubbing this in. I'm not pressing or, you know, anything major. Just kind of rubbing it in. You may not want to do that toward yourself like I just did, because if you mess up, you're going to be wearing it. Never forget to do your edges. And then make sure that you don't get it all over your shirt like I just did. Alright, I'll do the same thing on the inside. The inside is, you know, rougher material, so you're going to have to add it a little bit extra, you know. It's going to take more to cover it, make the, wow. It's going to take more dye to cover the whole area fully. Holy moly, that was hard to say. I apologize. This side's kind of a little more absorbent than the other side, so it definitely does take more colorant. You know, if you don't press too hard, it doesn't go through the back side of the sponge like that. But obviously I've been, you know, whatever. Doing this side, the stain on this side of it is easier with the wool little dauber things, just because you can get a whole lot more on there. Alright, so then we turn it over and double check the outside. Make sure we got everything. Good measure. This way it's going to come up kind of mottled colored, but not in a bad way. I don't know how to explain it until you see it. It comes out slightly splotchy colored, but it looks more antique than like you messed up. If you did it dry, you actually can get that effect very intensely. All you do is you rub it on real fast and then rub it off real fast before it even gets a chance to all absorb in. Do I like that? Yes, I do, but this is kind of a gentler, lighter, whatever look. So I'm going to dry this, and I'm going to press it under a book to flatten this piece out here that's bumped up right there while it's drying, and then when I get back to you, it will be dry, and I will show you how to put the coating on, and then we'll do all of our other stuff. Before, actually, I do have to measure out and put the holes in here for the elastic, because you got to get the stain into the holes or they're going to be all the natural color, which we don't want. This is 12 3/4-ish. So I'm going to keep using this piece because I don't have a longer ruler, I don't think. Oh, yeah, I do right there. Hold on. Okay, look at that puppy. That's a big ruler. So what we're aiming for is half of, we'll say 13, because I can eyeball that better. Five, 6, 7, 6 and a half. And, oh, jeebus. Careful doing that, you'll ding it up while it's wet. Alright, so half of 13 would be 6 and a half. So there, I'm just putting marks, I'm not doing a lot. There, there. So one in the center, and then one on either side at a 1/4 inch away from it. Then I'm going to flip it around and do that same thing. All I did to get the 13 is shift it a little bit. That way it's centered in between the 13. So this end is off a little bit and that end's off a little bit. That way I can say 6 and a half is my center, even though it's not. These holes are also only going to be 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch from the end. Preferably only a 1/4, but do your best. So yeah, just making a mark. From there, I'm going to, like I said, make sure it's only a 1/4 of an inch down. this end. Make sure it's only 1/4 of an inch down. Check the center one. Oops. So we're at 1/4. 1/4. And then check the last one. Oops. That's 1/4. Whoop. And that one is 1/4 as well. I just did 1/4 inch because I did to fit 8.5 inch tall pieces of paper, which means 1/4 and 1/4 is a 1/2 inch extra, and it's 9 inches long, so there you go. Wait. Why isn't I made it 9 and... Really? Sam? I made it 9 1/4, at any rate. So that'll give me a little more wiggle room anyway, though. So it's okay. It doesn't matter. Alright, so then you take your hole punch, in whichever one you use. You want to use your smallest hole punch. This here is the smallest one. It is probably 1/8 of an inch across, maybe a little bit less. It's pretty small. And then just center it over the dot you just made and pop it out. And rinse and repeat for all 3 on both sides. If you're good at eyeballing, you do not have to do all that measuring. You could just eyeball the center and then eyeball just the other side of each of them. Each of it. Blech, just to the other side of it on each side. I know what I'm trying to say. Jeez. Can't take me anywhere. Okay, so that's that. And looking inside here, I don't know if you can see, if I can get a good angle there. They have kind of a nude colored insides. So we're going to just get this sponge damp and just kind of rub it into the hole on either end. Flip it over and try it again. Basically what you're trying to do is get the color inside the holes. So being that my sponge was already wet from doing the other sides, that's easy enough to do. I didn't even have to add any more ink. Now you can see that I have a really dark spot and a really dark spot. Just kind of smush it around to make it match, you know, so it doesn't look so obvious. Like I said, the coloring is going to be kind of mottled, you know, blotchy, and that's what I was aiming for, but, you know, you don't want it to be that obvious that you add onto the paper, because, you know, that's just silly. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, and while it's drying, before it dries, I'm going to just cut the corners off and measure out the cording that I need for later. And like I said, I'm going to let it sit underneath something so that this bumpled up edge can be flattened out. I will be back. Okay, it's dried, and now we're putting on the gloss coat, or whatever you want to call it, the satin sheen, as it were. I'm just rubbing it in with a sponge so that it keeps that mottled effect. Because if you were to take a wet sponge, for instance, and rub on the colors with just the water, it would actually pull up some of the color. So it does the same thing when you add the finish this way. So you gotta, well, you don't have to, but I like to use the sponge to keep the texture to the color. I don't know if you can see the spots on here, but that was what we were aiming for. Flip it over and do the other side. Again, it takes a little more to do the back side than the outside because it's very porous and textured. So just keep adding until it's all covered. when you get all of the surfaces covered the way you want them, make sure you do the edges, lift it up and do the edges. You know, you don't want to forget any piece of the hole here. So, that's that. Double check this side. Quickie coat for good measure. Okay. And then quick once around the edge. Doesn't have to be a ton because it's, you know, not having rubbed the edges. I don't know if I did that on camera or not, but I rounded the edges using this thing. That is just so that they're all smooth. But having done that, it also makes it less porous. So it doesn't actually absorb in there very well, in case you can't tell by it all over my hand. And then we let it dry again. Okay, I'm going to measure out the elastic cord for this. This is just round elastic cord from Dritz. It's a sewing company. I acquired it from Joann's Fabrics anyway. There's going to be 3. You could do either 3 or 4, but I'm gonna see if I can do it with just 3 strings. But you can do however many you want. If you do, you can do like 2 per hole. It's up to you which way, how many you go with. That's what matters. When you fold this way, this is going to be a good inch wider than the paper is. The purpose for that is as you add books into here or notebooks into here, it's going to, the spine of it's going to grow, which means this is going to shrink. Okay, so you got to make sure you're taking into account, you know, if you're going to have 3 or 4, 10, whatever, you know, that makes a difference. Alright, so this is the top, that's the front, this is the top. Now I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to actually string this, so I'm going to wing it, and I'm not going to cut it until I get there because I don't want to cut it too short or waste a bunch. So you're aiming for these on the inside and only just the smallest amount on the outside if you can at all avoid it. So that was from the middle top down to the middle bottom, into the left hand side bottom, out the top left hand side, across to the right hand side, down to the bottom. And now because I would prefer that they all come out of the same hole, I am going to, that it ends in the same hole it began in at any rate, I am going to go back through the center one and come out the center one on top. So I need a little more room here. There you go. Now it's going to take a little finagling to get it into this hole that already has a string into it. If you find the end of your rubber string here is not cooperating, you can always melt it and make it into like a little point, like roll it in your fingers after you heat it up, like this. That'll give it a little bit of a point and make it a little easier to get in and out of the hole. So what I find works best is just to pull it tight, and it makes more room, and automatically it'll go up in and out of the hole. But it does start to fray after you do that a few times, so that's why you gotta take into consideration. Alright, so now you want to make them taut enough that this is going to start to bend up. You don't want it too loose or you will have problems. Alright, so those are my scissors. So give it a little bit of a tug. Hold on to the first string. And give it a little bit of a tug again. You want them all the same tautness. Now again, you want them just a little bit so they're pulling the book just a little bit, but not too much. You don't want to like yank it and roll the whole thing up and then you have a hot mess on your hands. So you're going to snip it. Being sure to hold on to this tightly because it's going to try and get away. It is a rubber band after all. And then you're just going to do a round knot like this. I'm sure it's got a real name, but that's what I call it. And you're going to push it down as close as you can to the book, like that. And then when you put a book of paper that you made in here, notebook in here, it'll hold it flat. For now, being that there are no books made yet, we're just going to fold it and lay it on, leave it that way for now. What I'm going to do is cover this with something if I can. If not, I'm just going to add a bead and then retie it. But for now, that's all I have. So there's little strings hanging out. Now you can do this the other way, like not do what I just did, and bring it back inside so that it ties on the inside, and you can tie it down here. I did, however, forget to pop a hole in the spine here, like in the middle. That is for the elastic that's going to go around and hold the whole thing shut in the end. I will fix that, and when we get back together I'll hopefully have that done. For the next video I'm going to show you how to make one of the books that goes in here. You know, they're kind of important. It defeats the whole entire purpose if you don't have the books. So I'm going to make probably just a notebook, like out of this type. This I sewed together a while ago. It's just a sort of a Coptic stitch, however you say that. So all you do in this case here is pull it to the center of one of the signatures in your book that you made and just put it through the elastic. The elastic should be a little bit tight. And that's it. Just put it in, and then it's in there. So I'm not going to leave this in here because this is still damp from the finish that we put on it. Alright, so that's it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again shortly.